If Maya Daniels had known the old woman sitting beside her on the bus owned half of Willow Creek, she might have thought twice before handing over her last $2. But life doesn't warn you when a moment is about to change everything, and kindness, real kindness, never waits for an audience. That morning, Maya had no idea she was being watched. Not by the students who whispered, "Maid's daughter," behind her back, not by the neighbors who pretended they didn't see her, but by someone far more powerful, someone whose name rested on skyscrapers, charity wings, and technology centers across the state. Someone dressed in a faded floral coat, blending into the background like any other lonely senior citizen. Someone hiding in plain sight. And all it took was one small act of kindness to set off a chain of events that would shake the entire town. Before we start, join our community by subscribing. This channel shares powerful human stories every week, and I'd really love to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Let's get into today's story. Willow Creek was the kind of suburb that gleamed under the sun. Expensive cars, polished driveways, country club etiquette. A place where lawns were trimmed weekly and reputations mattered more than sincerity. To the families who lived there, wealth was a birthright, and privilege was so normal they barely recognized it. Hidden beneath that shine were cracks, quiet, subtle, and ignored unless they inconvenienced the right people. For Maya and her mother, Marcia Daniels, those cracks were the world they walked on every day. Marcia, a hardworking maid for the Whitmore family, had spent nearly a decade tending to the details that kept wealthy households comfortable. Her hands were roughened by cleaning chemicals, her back often sore from long hours, yet she moved with a calm dignity that refused to bend under the weight of anyone's expectations. She rose before dawn each day, preparing breakfast, ironing her uniform, and whispering a prayer for strength. Their apartment was small, but warm. The smell of oatmeal simmering on the stove mixed with the faint scent of detergent on freshly folded clothes. Maya shuffled into the room, still sleepy-eyed, and Marcia looked at her with the kind of quiet love only a mother who has endured struggle can show. "Kindness first, Maya," she said, touching her daughter's cheek. "No matter how this world treats you." Those words had guided Maya all her life. A 17-year-old scholarship student navigating a school where most classmates had never worried about bills, bus fares, or judgmental stares. She was used to the whispers in the hallway, "Maid's daughter," said with the kind of casual cruelty that came from kids raised to believe compassion was optional. Still, Maya kept her head high. She focused on her studies, minded her own business, and chose kindness even when it wasn't returned. Marcia left early for the Whitmore's mansion, disappearing into a world where she was valued only for what she could clean, scrub, or simplify. Maya locked the apartment behind her and walked through Willow Creek with determination in her steps, unaware that her ordinary morning was quietly transforming into something extraordinary. She waited at the bus stop as cold air brushed her cheeks. She replayed her mother's words in her mind, unaware that destiny was already shifting its weight around her. Unaware that an encounter with a stranger, one she assumed was simply another elderly woman struggling through the morning, would alter her life in ways she could never imagine. Because everything changed the morning Maya took the 214 bus. The 214 bus screeched to a stop in front of Maya, its brakes letting out a tired groan that matched the mood of early morning commuters. Maya stepped on, reaching into her backpack for her transit card, only to feel her stomach drop. It wasn't in the front pocket. She checked the side compartment. Then the zipper pouch. Nothing. She had forgotten to reload it the night before, a mistake she rarely made. The bus driver, a gruff man with a fading mustache, tapped the digital screen impatiently. "Card?" he asked. Maya swallowed. I don't have enough on it today." He sighed loudly, the kind of sigh meant to shame. Behind Maya, someone huffed, already annoyed by the delay. Before she could step back off the bus, the driver finally jerked his chin toward an empty seat. "Fine, just go. Don't make it a habit." His tone made it clear. To him, she was already an inconvenience. Maya nodded politely and moved down the aisle, clutching her backpack tighter. She didn't want special treatment. She just needed to get to school. She took a seat halfway down, exhaling as she tried to shake off the embarrassment. But embarrassment had a way of echoing on this bus. At the next stop, an elderly woman boarded slowly, leaning heavily on the rail. She wore a worn, floral coat, thick glasses, and gloves that looked older than she was. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with a coin purse, each shaky attempt growing more desperate. The bus driver didn't bother hiding his irritation this time. "Ma'am, you need exact fare. You're holding us up." A few passengers rolled their eyes. Others stared ahead, pretending she didn't exist. Some shifted uncomfortably, annoyed by the interruption. The apathy in the air grew thick, suffocating. I know, dear," the woman murmured, her voice thin. "I thought I had it. I must have left my wallet." "Then you'll need to step off," the driver snapped. The old woman froze, cheeks reddening beneath her wrinkles. Her lips pressed together as she gathered the courage to turn around, ready to take the humiliating walk back down the steps. But before she could move, Maya was on her feet. "I'll pay for her," she said. The bus went silent for a beat. The driver blinked. "You again?" "She just needs help," Maya said softly. "It's fine." Grumbling under his breath, the driver accepted the payment. Maya guided the elderly woman to a seat beside her. The woman sat carefully, releasing a breath that seemed held for years. "Thank you, child," she whispered, her eyes warm and watery. "People usually look right through me." Maya smiled gently. "Everyone needs help sometimes." The old woman's expression softened into something like gratitude, but also something deeper, something curious, thoughtful, as if she were studying Maya with questions she hadn't voiced yet. "My name is Eleanor," she said quietly. "Eleanor Gray." Maya introduced herself, unaware that she was speaking to a woman whose decisions shaped entire industries, a woman whose signature moved millions, a woman who, at that very moment, sat disguised among everyday commuters to test something she had long suspected. People wore different hearts when they thought she was poor. As the bus rumbled through the morning streets, Maya and Eleanor spoke in soft tones, about school, about aging, about loneliness, about dreams. Neither conversation was long, but the warmth between them grew naturally, like two souls brushing against fate. When the bus neared Maya's stop, Eleanor watched her rise with a gentle smile, holding on to the kindness she'd just received. Maya didn't know she had just touched the heart of a woman who could rewrite her entire life. Long after Maya stepped off the bus and disappeared into the crowd of students rushing toward Willow Creek High, the vehicle continued its route, rumbling past office buildings, corner cafes, and sleeping neighborhoods. The old woman she had helped, the one with trembling hands and a faded floral coat, remained seated, watching the world slide by through scratched glass. But she was no ordinary senior citizen struggling through her day. She was Eleanor Gray, the Eleanor Gray, billionaire, co-founder of Graytech Industries, philanthropist, a woman whose name was etched into university halls, hospital wings, children's homes, and research foundations across the region. To the world, she was a symbol of power and prestige. To herself, she had become a ghost, surrounded by assistants, insulated by wealth, and cut off from any genuine human connection. Most people only spoke to her because they wanted something: a donation, a connection, a door opened, a favor granted, or, at the very least, a photograph with the great Eleanor Gray. But today, wrapped in an old coat and thick glasses, Eleanor was invisible, and, for once, she preferred it that way. She had woken that morning with a heaviness in her chest, a familiar weight she felt more often since her husband died 7 years ago. Loneliness had a way of sitting quietly beside wealth, reminding her that money could buy comfort, security, even influence, but never sincerity. That was why she took the bus alone, why she chose public transportation instead of her limo, why she left her assistants behind and gave her security team the day off. She wanted to see the world without filters. She wanted to remember what humanity looked like when it wasn't trying to impress her. She wanted to feel normal again, but what she saw, time and time again, disappointed her. People shove past the elderly. Men ignore struggling mothers. Students mock those with less. Everyone moved fast, eyes down, hearts closed. Until Maya Daniels stood up. Eleanor's fingers tightened on her cane as she replayed the moment. The girl didn't hesitate, didn't calculate, didn't look around before deciding to help. Kindness had poured out of her naturally, like breathing. It had startled Eleanor, shocked her even. She had met mayors who couldn't muster that level of sincerity, CEOs who wrote checks but never cared, celebrities who prayed over brand deals but forgot compassion. But this girl, this maid's daughter, she was different. Eleanor reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small black leather notebook, the same one she used to jot potential scholarship candidates, charitable ideas, and people she wanted to revisit. Very few ever made the list. With slow, deliberate strokes, she wrote the name, Maya Daniels. Her pen paused. She underlined it once, twice. Then she closed the notebook and rested it in her lap, her eyes softening with the faint glow of possibility. This wasn't charity. This wasn't pity. This was recognition of a rare heart, a rare spirit, a rare spark she hadn't seen in decades. Eleanor leaned back as the bus carried her forward, but her mind remained fixed on the girl with the brave smile and empty transit card. Maya had given freely, not knowing, not expecting, not performing. It had touched Eleanor more deeply than she cared to admit. And Eleanor wasn't done with Maya. Not even close. Maya stepped off the 214 bus and blended into the tide of students streaming toward the tall glass entrance of Willow Creek High. The cold morning air clung to her cheeks as she adjusted her backpack strap and hurried forward, still warmed by her conversation with Eleanor, unaware of how important that moment would become. But Willow Creek High had a way of reminding her, quickly and painfully, where she stood in its silent hierarchy. She had barely walked through the courtyard when she heard it. "Look who's finally here," a voice called out, sharp, mocking, dripping with privilege. 3 students stood near the fountain, designer jackets zipped high, immaculate hair styled to perfection. They were the children of lawyers, executives, and homeowners in neighborhoods where Gates kept out people like her. Their eyes watched Maya with a mix of amusement and disdain. "She paid for some random old lady on the bus," one girl sneered. "With what money? Does she even have any?" Another boy laughed. "Of course not. She's the maid's daughter. Helping strangers is all she can afford." The third smirked, leaning forward. "Maybe she wants attention. Poor people love that kind of spotlight." Maya kept walking, jaw tight, refusing to give them the satisfaction of reacting. She was used to the comments, used to the whispers that followed her through the pristine hallways like unwanted shadows. But today, the cruelty stung differently. She had felt so proud, so full moments earlier. Now, those same warm feelings clashed hard against the coldness of their words. As she reached her locker, something gentle interrupted her thoughts. "Maya?" a voice called softly. She turned to see Ms. Carter, her English teacher, one of the few adults in the school who saw her beyond stereotypes. Ms. Carter's eyes were kind, her tone warm. "I heard what you did this morning," she said. "That was incredible. Not many teenagers would step up like that." Maya blinked, surprised. You heard?" "Good things travel quietly," Ms. Carter replied, "but they still travel." For a moment, Maya felt seen, not for what she lacked, but for who she was. The praise wrapped around her like a brief shield against the cruelty she faced daily. But the day wasn't finished humbling her. Across town, Marcia was polishing the marble kitchen counter inside the Whitmore's mansion when Mrs. Whitmore swept into the room, heels clicking sharply against the floor. She glanced at Marcia without greeting her. "You people really don't understand punctuality, do you?" she muttered. "Always a few minutes late? Always an excuse." Marcia kept her posture still, swallowing her irritation. "I arrived at my usual time, ma'am." Mrs. Whitmore shrugged. Just remember your place. We pay you to keep things running smoothly." Before Marcia could respond, her phone buzzed. She stepped into the pantry and answered it. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Daniels?" the school administrator asked. "Yes, this is she. We wanted to inform you that Maya received a reprimand for tardiness this morning. This is her first warning." Marcia's chest tightened. "Tardiness. She left early. The bus. Rules are rules, ma'am." The call ended before she could explain. Later that evening, mother and daughter sat at the small dinner table, the weight of the day pressing silently between them. Marcia reached across, touching Maya's hand. "Don't let them change you," Marcia whispered. "Kindness is never wasted. Not ever. Reputation fades. Goodness stays." Maya nodded, the warmth of her mother's words soothing the cracks the day had made. Little did they know, someone powerful was already watching. The following morning, Willow Creek High buzzed with the usual chatter of privilege and routine, students comparing new phones, debating weekend plans, and drifting through hallways scented with expensive colognes. No one expected the sharp, sleek convoy of black vehicles that rolled up to the school entrance just after first bell. Teachers froze. Students gawked. Administrators rushed to the front doors, confused and tense. But the confusion evaporated the moment the rear door of the central vehicle opened. Out stepped Eleanor Gray, not in disguise, not in thrift store clothes, but in her true form, poised, commanding, and unmistakably wealthy. Her signature gray-tailored coat rested neatly on her shoulders, her hair swept into an elegant bun. Two members of her security team flanked her, their presence both intimidating and dignified. Whispers rippled across the lawn like a startled wave. "Is that? It can't be. That's Eleanor Gray, the Eleanor Gray." The principal, Mr. Halston, hurried toward her, breathless and pale. "Soy. Mrs. Gray, this is an unexpected honor. How may we assist you?" Eleanor didn't waste a second. "I'm here to ask a question," she said, her voice calm but firm. "How do you treat your scholarship students?" The principal blinked, clearly not prepared for that. "We treat all students fairly, ma'am." "Do you?" she replied, her gaze sharp as glass. "Because fairness isn't measured by rules. It's measured by compassion." Mr. Halston swallowed, suddenly aware that this was not a ceremonial visit. This was an inquiry, a test, a confrontation wrapped in politeness. Eleanor continued, "This school prides itself on academic prestige. But tell me, when a child from a working-class background arrives late because of circumstances beyond her control, do you reprimand her, or do you show grace?" His silence answered for him. Eleanor nodded once, a gesture of quiet disappointment, then turned away. "I'll be in touch." She returned to her vehicle, leaving the principal trembling in the doorway, unsure what consequences he had just awakened. But Eleanor was far from finished. As the convoy glided toward the Whitmore neighborhood, she peered through the window, carefully watching the landscape shift from modest apartment blocks to extravagant gated estates. She noticed how joggers glanced at working-class residents with suspicion, how homeowners avoided eye contact with maids walking dogs or carrying laundry. At the Whitmore's mansion, Eleanor didn't step out. She only observed from a distance. She watched Marcia Daniels hurry across the lawn with a basket of linens, pausing respectfully as Mrs. Whitmore barked instructions with icy impatience. She saw Maya walk past the gate after school, head down, shoulders tense, ignoring snickers from teenagers lounging near the driveway. Eleanor's jaw tightened. This wasn't simple inequality. It was embedded classism, quiet, subtle, and poisonous. She turned to her assistant in the car. "Find me everything on the Daniels family." Within minutes, a slim folder was placed in her hands. Inside were the facts: a single mother working 2 jobs, a scholarship student with exceptional grades, late rent notices, overdue utility bills, a household run on grit and love rather than privilege. Eleanor closed the folder slowly, letting out a breath that felt like resolve hardening in her chest. Maya had given selflessly with nothing to spare. Her last $2, her time, her warmth, and this town repaid her with whispers, with snubs, with reprimands. It wasn't enough to thank her. It wasn't enough to reward her. It wasn't enough to simply acknowledge her kindness. No, Eleanor Gray was a woman of impact, a woman of legacy, a woman who believed that gratitude should shake the ground it stood on. She lifted her chin slightly, eyes narrowing with purpose. She had decided. Kindness must echo louder than prejudice. The sun dipped low over Willow Creek that Friday afternoon, painting the sky in soft shades of peach and gold. Residents strolled lazily along the sidewalks, watering lawns, checking mailboxes, or chatting over hedges. Everything seemed ordinary, comfortably predictable. Until the sound of 3 black SUVs rolled into the Daniels' modest apartment complex. Engines quiet, windows tinted, presence unmistakable. Neighbors stepped out of their homes, brows furrowed, whispering. In a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone's business, this convoy didn't belong. The vehicles eased to a stop directly in front of the Daniels building. Then the rear door opened, and out stepped Eleanor Gray, not in disguise, not hidden, fully herself, radiant, commanding, and dressed in a tailored coat that didn't need a logo to declare its worth. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. A woman carrying groceries nearly dropped her bags. A man watering his plants turned off the hose mid-spray. Children peered from behind their parents' legs, wide-eyed. "What? What is she doing here?" someone whispered. "Eleanor Gray? In this neighborhood? Is she lost?" But Eleanor walked with purpose. No hesitation, no confusion, straight toward the small building where Marcia and Maya lived. 2 security officers followed at a respectful distance. Marcia opened the door cautiously, confusion tightening her features. Her eyes widened when she saw who stood on her doorstep. Mrs. Gray?" she breathed, unsure if she was seeing correctly. Maya appeared behind her, backpack still slung over one shoulder. The instant she recognized the woman she had helped on the bus, her heartbeat stumbled. "You," Maya whispered. Eleanor's face softened into a warm smile. "Hello, Maya." Then, in full view of the stunned neighbors, the billionaire stepped forward and embraced Maya. The street erupted in shocked murmurs. Eleanor spoke softly but clearly enough for those nearest to hear. "I came to thank you. Your kindness changed my morning and reminded me there are still good hearts in this world." Maya stood frozen, overwhelmed. It was nothing." "Nothing to you," Eleanor said gently. "Everything to me." Then she faced the gathering crowd, her voice steady. "This young woman showed compassion when no one else did. She helped me when she had little to spare. I intend to return that kindness, loudly." Eleanor reached into her coat and handed Marcia an envelope, thick, sealed, embossed with the Graytech emblem. Inside was a full academic scholarship for Maya, tuition, books, expenses, transportation. But that wasn't all. There was also an offer letter for Marcia, a new job at the Gray Foundation's Community Affairs Department. Better pay, humane hours, full benefits. Marcia clasped a hand over her mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. "Mrs. Gray, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Eleanor replied. "Just allow me to honor the kindness your daughter showed me." Around them, the neighborhood buzzed with disbelief. Mothers who once overlooked Marcia now stared with a mix of awe and envy. Teenagers who mocked Maya at school watched from a distance, their expressions stiff with confusion. A silence fell beneath the murmurs, respect woven with shock. Eleanor wasn't finished. "There is one more thing," she said, turning toward the vehicles waiting at the curb. "A gesture for your family's future." Her security officers approached with a second envelope, larger, heavier. Inside was paperwork that would change the Daniels' life permanently. But Eleanor held up a hand. "That surprise," she said with a small smile, "is for tomorrow, She stepped back, giving Maya's hand one final squeeze. The kindness of one girl had reached a billionaire's heart, and the echo was only beginning. The next morning, Willow Creek awoke to a silence that felt heavier than usual, an uneasy pause, as though the entire neighborhood sensed something extraordinary lingering in the air. Word had already spread. Overnight, social media whispered. Group chats buzzed. Neighbors exchanged theories. By noon, nearly everyone in the community knew. Eleanor Gray was returning to the Daniels family. This time, she wasn't coming quietly. The same sleek SUVs rolled into the neighborhood, but this time accompanied by a smaller van carrying several members of Eleanor's foundation staff. Residents stepped outside again, curious, humbled, and unable to ignore the truth they had been pretending not to see. The maid's daughter mattered more than they ever believed. Marcia and Maya waited outside their building, nervous but hopeful. Marcia clutched Maya's hand like it was her lifeline. Maya stood tall, though her heart thudded against her ribs. Eleanor stepped out first, her smile warm and confident. She approached the Daniels family with a grace that made even the wealthiest onlookers straighten their posture. "Good morning," she greeted gently. "Today is a bit bigger than yesterday." She motioned toward her staff, who brought forward the large envelope she had held back. Marcia accepted it with trembling hands, opening it carefully. The first page was a deed. The deed to a new home, fully paid for, no mortgage, located in a safer, beautiful neighborhood where Maya could grow without shame, where Marcia could rest without fear of eviction notices. "Mrs. Gray," Marcia whispered, her voice cracking. This can't be real." "It is," Eleanor said softly. "Your daughter reminded me what generosity still looks like. The world doesn't reward kindness often enough. I intend to change that." The crowd fell into stunned silence. But Eleanor wasn't done. She stepped aside, allowing her staff to unveil a small banner, the Maya Daniels Initiative. Kindness, first program. Maya's breath caught. "This," Eleanor explained, "is a community fund created in your honor. It will provide support to students from underrepresented families, bus passes, school supplies, emergency aid, so no child has to choose between dignity and opportunity." Whispers broke into applause. Some clapped hesitantly, some with shame, but all with recognition. Maya, overwhelmed, covered her face with both hands as tears streamed down her cheeks. Eleanor reached for her shoulders, grounding her with a steadying touch. "You gave me kindness," she said. "I'm giving you possibility." Nearby, the Whitmores watched with emotions they didn't quite understand. Guilt, confusion, maybe regret. Their neighbors found themselves reflecting on private biases. Even the students who mocked Maya the day before stood frozen, forced to confront the limits of their shallow judgments. This was a reversal no one saw coming, a rewriting of the unspoken rules of Willow Creek. Maya finally found her voice. I just did what felt right." "And that," Eleanor said, "is the difference between you and the world. Most people wait until someone is watching before they act good. You didn't." A hush fell over the crowd, reverent and deep. Eleanor turned to address everyone gathered. "Let this be a reminder," she said. "Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not poverty. The worth of a person is never measured by the size of their wallet, but by the size of their heart." Marcia held Maya close, relief and gratitude radiating from her in waves. The life they had lived, scraping by, enduring judgment, fighting silently, was shifting under their feet. A better home, a better future, a voice amplified in a world that often silenced people like them. As the security convoy prepared to leave, Eleanor paused, looking back at Maya with a proud, knowing smile, because she had decided, kindness must echo louder than prejudice. And in Willow Creek, on that unforgettable day, it finally did. Thank you for watching. If you felt that spark of kindness in this story, subscribe right now. I share new stories every week to keep that spark alive.